What's up, guys? Simone Fan 101 here, and yeah, about damn time. My first Q&A, and probably one of the only YouTubers brave enough to do a TNA Q&A. Now, earlier this month, um, I uploaded a good 6 minute video, maybe a little bit long, because I talk. I don't do edited videos like say Lundrick or Princess Strong Style does, and I uh, I basically told you people give your questions on the TNA Q&A for what I call the golden years from 2002 to 2006, back when TNA tried to be something different. Started out a little rocky in the Asylum years from '02 to '04, but it was still very good in some ways and other ways not. But yeah, 2000, but yeah, those years specifically. Now, this is going to be my TNA Q&A, and we'll begin from and I wrote down all the questions, by the way, and a couple of the answers that I pretty much needed to list because listings and everything. So we're going to be going from the guys who asked first to the guys who asked last. Not too many YouTubers asked, but some of the main ones did, which is a good thing. We just fix the camera here. There we go, and let's go. First of all, Princess Strong Style V2. What are some of the good elements of TNA during the golden years? Well, good question, but the first thing that comes to mind is the X Division. In those 4 years, or 4 to 5 years, whatever, you could say 5 years because, individual years in wrestling is different from, say, age. But, in those years, the X Division was as strong as you could possibly make it. Just gotta clean my glasses. And you had so many great wrestlers that came out of the X Division. You had AJ Styles, you had Christopher Daniels, you had Chris Sabin, you had Low Key. Jerry Lynn was a veteran. So was Sean Waltman whenever he was in there. Samoa Joe, later on, Samoa Joe in the X Division. Sanjay Dutt. And just Petey Williams was another guy. Alex Shelley and his, when he was a lot younger, before the days of the Motor City Machine Guns. Just a lot of wrestlers. A lot of wrestlers went for that. It was a prestigious title. It wasn't necessarily the best looking title. It did look a little weird at first. You would eventually get used to it. But you cannot mention good elements of TNA without mentioning the X Division, especially back then when they were pretty much at the peak. That was the peak of the X Division. It never got any better than that, and even today, it's nowhere near as good as what it used to be. Another good element of TNA back in those times, the tag team division. Outside of 2002, maybe 2003, you didn't have a lot of good tag teams in WWE. I mean, you had some makeshift tag teams, but how long did those last? And lest we forget the Dicks. Remember the Dicks or LOD 3.0. Animal and Heidenreich. How shitty that was. I mean, you had some good teams like Eminem and Paul London and Brian Kendrick, but outside of those early years, especially the SmackDown 6 era and Haas and Benjamin, you didn't have a lot of great tag teams. TNA was churning tag teams out left and right. You had the Maximos, Jose and Joe Maximo. For those of you that were in TNA's early days. You had America's Most Wanted, of course. Triple X, shitty name, I know, but yeah, that was the trio of Daniels, Low Key, and Elix Skipper, former WCW talent there. You had the Naturals, Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, a great tag team. You had Team Canada, specifically the tag team of Bobby Roode and Eric Young. You had AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, a tag team that was created, that was born a rivalry and turned into a friendship. You had LAX, great tag team. Not the one with Conan and Hernandez. No, the one with Hernandez and Homicide. That LAX. You know, near the middle to end of 2006. He had, of course, the Three Live Crew, which weren't necessarily a great in-ring tag team, but they were a great act. Which oddly enough had Conan back when he would throw his shoe at people, which I always found kind of funny. There was just a lot of good tag teams, and there was a couple other tag teams I'm probably missing, but of course Team 3D. How could I forget when they came into TNA in 2005? Team 3D, that was another great one. So you had a lot of good things. A few other elements that was good about TNA. The six-sided ring. I know they have it now, but back then especially, the six-sided ring made TNA so different from pretty much every other promotion. Hold on. Brooklyn, I'm trying to record a video. Can you please leave? Sorry guys, it's my niece. You had the six-sided ring. You had stipulations like that were very good back then. Ultimate X, you had Ultimate X, King of the Mountain, despite the confusing rules. It seemed it looked different, which was the whole point. Then there was a couple other things, but those were like the big ones. Okay, he had two questions there. Your second question was, which stars from different promotions you wish would have came in to have solid runs, i.e. Roderick Strong. And of course you did mention that, yeah, he was in there, but he was only in there for like maybe a couple of months. Wrestlers that would have a solid run. I could name several, from Ring of Honor, from WWE. I could name several. Of course, the two that come to mind are Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. You cannot tell me that if Danielson and McGuinness were in TNA around that time, that they wouldn't have been great assets to the X Division. Even if they didn't make it to the World Title Division, this was back when the X Division had a lot of focus. And McGuinness and Danielson would have made the most of it. Yeah, they weren't necessarily high-flying guys, but they were smaller guys. They could do some high-flying. They did, suicide dives through the ropes. Of course, looking at WWE, let's see, a guy that could make a even though he made it in WWE, was a 3-time champion in WWE, Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio is a guy that he would have been treated as a huge star if he went to TNA. Not because he was just a WWE guy, but because he is the greatest high flyer that ever lived. He is the greatest masked luchador ever. You can't tell me that in, say, 2005 or 2006, you wouldn't have had a feud between AJ Styles and Rey Mysterio, or Daniel, or Mysterio versus Daniels, or Mysterio versus Joe, or Petey Williams, or Chris Sabin. You cannot tell me that wouldn't be awesome. You know that would kick ass. Nigel McGuinness is a little different, but I think he would have made it well. He did have a run later on TNA as Desmond Wolfe, although that was somewhat short because of, the hepatitis thing. There was, let's see, other guys that I think could have made it. Well, probably Rob Van Dam. Yeah, of course, Rob Van Dam was a 2-time champion in WWE, but Rob Van Dam, the kind of I know these are, I'm naming guys who would fit in the X Division, but that was one of the main focal points. Sorry about that. That was one of the main focal points of TNA. Rob Van Dam would have made it as both a tag team guy, an X Division guy, a main event guy. You cannot tell me that he wouldn't have been a great asset to TNA, especially back then. He was a lot younger. He had probably more passion. I remember this guy's momentum was killed off by Triple H in 2002. He went to TNA in 2003, 2004, or something like that. Barring the contract thing, because of course everyone's got a contract. And I didn't know what his stats was at the time, but he would have been a great asset. Again, his matches against a younger AJ Styles, a younger Christopher Daniels, Abyss back when he was a lot better in the ring, Christian Cage back in 2005 or 2006. Like more matches with, well, he already had them, but matches with Samoa Joe. Actually, no, he didn't have many matches with Samoa Joe. But again, that's another match. RVD versus Samoa Joe. A good hardcore style match that would have kicked ass. So those are just a few examples. Again, and oh yeah, going on to your point, yeah, Roderick Strong should have had a bigger run. I think he could have been at least a very good X Division guy, if not a tag team guy with Austin Aries. If TNA hadn't flubbed up with them, or they'd worsened any issues between TNA and Ring of Honor, because remember they had the working agreement back then. Not so much now. Okay, next up, it is Raining Blood. Nice name. Who was the biggest TNA wrestler during these years besides Styles, Daniels, and Joe? Well, fuck, you just took the three top answers right from under me, you asshole. The best during these years? It's a very good question because, there was guys like... You had guys like Raven, you had Jeff Jarrett, and say what you will about Jeff Jarrett, but he was a big star, a TNA star, I should say, during that time. Maybe not necessarily the best. Well, what was the question again? Who was the best? Yeah, wasn't Jeff Jarrett. Of course, you had the tag team guys. If I had to give an answer, and I know this is going to be a little bit weird considering he came in at pretty much in the final year of this, but Christian Cage. He was one of the best TNA wrestlers TNA ever had during that time period. Yeah, and I know. The timeline I gave this TNA Q&A video, 02 to 06, Christian came in late 2005 because the writing was on the wall. He was not going to be in a top position in WWE, despite the fan support, despite the probably the locker room support. Vince just did not see him as that guy. TNA took full advantage of him, immediately thrusted him into the main event spotlight, and pretty much blew it out of the fucking water. I mean, his first pay-per-view match was a match against Monty Brown, and I think it was Turning Point 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Which was a good match. The next pay-per-view at Final Resolution was also Sting's official first pay-per-view match, not including the weekly pay-per-views in the Asylum years. But it was a tag team match between Christian and Sting against Jeff Jarrett and Monty Brown. And a month later, Christian beat Jarrett in a very good NWA title match. It ended up being NWA champion until Slammiversary, having great matches with Monty Brown, Abyss, a couple other guys, and of course the Slammiversary match itself, which had a bunch of chicanery at the end, but it was still a good match. But then, he had the face run there because he was a hot WWE guy. But let's face it, Christian was always better as a heel. So what happened? About a month or so later, they turned him heel. And then he went on to feud with Rhino, had a few good matches with Rhino. Had a great match with AJ Styles at Genesis 2006. And 2 months later, in 2007, I know, going a little bit past, he won the NWA title again. So, in that 1 year, in that close to 1 year time span, Christian Cage did a hell of a lot more in TNA than he probably would have ever done at that kind of level in WWE. So that's my answer is Christian Cage. Next question, my throat's giving out here, so I got water. Weapon Alex. Which current TNA wrestler would be perfect for these years in TNA? Example, the Wolves in 2005. Well, you just answered my own question. You answered your own damn question. Hold on. Yeah. You could go for a couple other guys, you know, Galloway, Lashley, but you answered your own damn question. The Wolves would have been absolutely perfect for TNA back in this time. You cannot tell me that TNA would see the Wolves and would see in their minds they see dollar signs. The Wolves in recent years, in Ring of Honor, in TNA, are one of the best tag teams in the world, despite maybe not having some of the greatest matches, mainly because of the TNA booking at times. But, again, the guys like the Wolves, you cannot tell me that back in 2004, 2005, they wouldn't have been utilized. You'd be full of shit. They could have fit in basically any role. They could have been a great tag. Well, they are, but they would have been a great tag team for them. Probably winning the tag team titles, no time flat, or if not, having a great tag team feud with guys like LAX, America's Most Wanted, Styles and Daniels, the Naturals, Team Canada. What else? Team 3D. Back when they were younger. Probably maybe a little bit less fit because Bubba Ray back then used to be bigger. But again, a great tag team matches with those guys. Absolutely amazing it would have been. They would have been great X Division stars again with guys like Styles, Daniels, Joe, Sabin, Shelley. Sanjay Dutt, Petey Williams, those guys, in singles matches, they would have fucking knocked it out of the park every chance they would have got. Edwards and Richards, respectively. Both are great singles guys, if you did not see their work in Ring of Honor. And they would have done fantastic back then. You could would they be world championship material? Maybe not. I mean, one thing the Wolves doesn't really have as well as good ring ability, and this is what some X Division guys had. Styles back then was like that too. They weren't exactly the greatest promo. I will say that. But they were definitely good enough to... And again, matches with... Jeff Jarrett would have had some of his best matches with Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards. And so would Abyss. So would Christian Cage. So would Monty Brown. So would, several other guys that were there. Kevin Nash was in TNA back then. He probably would have had... Well, I would say he would have had good matches with Richards and Edwards. But then again, I remember he had a match with Styles at Victory Road 2009. And that one just shat the bed. But again, they would have done very well. They would have stood out for being an absolutely fantastic tag team. So that answers your question. So you've answered your own question there. Lundrick. Now you actually went to the limit and asked all 5 questions. And top 3 matches during each of these years. Now this is why I pulled up a separate list. A separate piece of paper to name the top 3 matches from each year. Not top 5, top 3. 2002, well, that was so easy. It's the triple threat feud between AJ Styles, Low Ki, and Jerry Lynn those three guys had amazing chemistry, amazing multi-man chemistry, I should say. Great singles chemistry, but also, in my opinion, probably even greater multi-man chemistry. Of course, and those matches would be, their very first match together, again as opponents would be the Fatal 4-Way elimination match between Styles, Lynn, Low Key, and Psychosis, which was the best match of TNA that